So let's just see what that gives us. Again, just like in our hello world, in order to print to the command line, we use system out, or NetBeans sout works very nicely, and we'll just have it print out 5 for us, and that's going to print the variable. So let's just run this real quick and see what it gives us. See, it gives us really nothing. It's giving us a space or something it can't display, which is why we put the single quotes around it. Now if we run it, you can see that it puts out what we're asking for. Also, you can do the same thing for integers, and that will just simply print a string representation of the integer. You can see they're the same. As far as output goes, you can make basically output works as a string. So just like in hello world, we could say integer, and then you just add that plus sign in there to combine the two strings, and this could be character. And now when we run the code, you'll see it prints that. The next one that we're going to work with, which is really useful, you'll probably use it a lot, it's the string. It's familiar to a lot of people. In Java, we declare it with a capital S. It's a Java object in and of itself, and you just string, and you call it whatever you like. We'll call this one 5 str. And as far as strings go, you use double quotes, and strings are basically, as the name implies, a string of characters with any length you want. There's no limit, as opposed to something like a character array, which is basically a list of characters that can be used kind of like a string. That has a certain finite limit that's defined to it. We'll work with arrays probably next tutorial, but for now we're just going to stick to the basics. So you can see we just declared that string 5. So again, string 5 str, and if we run this, we're just going to see these things here. So that's pretty simple, not very useful. Let's manipulate things a little bit. Let's create a method. Now this is, like I said, methods do things for you. They do tasks that you don't want to have to recode over and over and over and over again. So for instance, let's do, in Java you have to declare a method, either public, private, or protected. We'll get into what each is later. It basically is access rights for the function, but for all intents and purposes in this tutorial, let's just stick with public. This is how you declare a method. Public, and then just like a variable, you have to tell it what type, what return type. Basically, when a function runs, it either returns no value or returns a value. Just like when you put 5 plus 5 into a calculator, it's going to give you a number. It's not going to give you a letter or something like that. So public, we'll call this, we'll make this one an integer function, and we'll call it method 1. Oh, yep, method 1, and we'll have it accept input. If you look at your main method that's automatically created for you, it's basically the same thing, except in Java it's automatically going to start with this main method here. Method 1, let's see. Method 1 will just take 2 integers, x and y, and add them together. Now that's a really simple function, and you don't really need to write a method for that, but for learning purposes, let's do that. And like I said, remember to comment your code. So returns We could do this in one line, but I'll break it up into two just so you can get a little more experience with declaring variables. Int xy equals x plus y. Return xy. Okay, so that's basically going to go ahead and take the given x and the given y, add them together, store them as this integer, and then spit it right back out. So if we let's put a blank space in here. If we run method 1, we can actually just print it right out. We'll do method 1, and we'll just add any two integers, do 200 and 547. And that, and up. When you're working in the main class, I'm not used to working in the main class, but when you're working in the main class, you have to declare everything static. Static just means it doesn't change from class to class. Usually you just use the main class to kind of launch your main applications class and then work with it from there. That's how I do my programming, and you'll see more of what I'm talking about in later tutorials. So let's actually add this tag, method 1. So you can see you can run a method just by writing its name and making sure you give it the variables it needs. So we're going to go ahead and run this, and you can see it gives us 747, right answer. You can also do character it could return. We'll call this method 2, and we'll give it an integer, make things interesting. And all this is going to do is character x equals, this is called casting here. If you want to change a variable's value from one type of variable to another, you put the type you want to change to in parentheses before the variable, kind of almost like multiplying it by that. So this just returns the character with the given integer code. Basically, to the computer, numbers, letters, anything it displays on the screen is just a number. So method 2 just takes any number and returns the character the computer associates with it. So again, method 2 and method 2, and we can pick any value. Now for this one, we're going to have to keep it between, I believe it's 0 and 128 or 127. Maybe 255, I think, is as high as it's going to go. So we'll just pick something like 150, which might give us a letter. That might be in the letter range. And we go ahead and run it. And no, see, it's the 150's character code for a question mark. Now if we gave it 160, get a completely different thing. We get nothing, a blank space. So we'll just drop it back to 150 and save that. So that's how you declare methods.